Hello and welcome. We're going to pick up our conversation from where we left off. In our last video, we just did full year depreciation for the straight line method, double declining method, units of output method, and for some of the year's digits method using full year depreciation. And now what we want to do is we want to move over to this other example here where we are doing the same thing, but with partial year depreciation. Okay. So in this example that we have over here, we are assuming that this company is, instead of purchasing this asset, this fixed asset on January 1st, they are purchasing the fixed asset on November 30th. So essentially they are purchasing the asset 11 months into the year, and they only owned the asset for 1 month out of the year. So how does this really change the whole big picture? All right. Let me get adjusted here. All right. So for the straight line method, the big way that this is going to change our overall formula is we still do the basic foundation of cost of $450,000 minus residual value divided by the estimated useful life in years. The only change here is that we have to adjust it by the number of months that it was owned, because the $80,000 that this is going to produce is for an entire year. And I basically want to say, well, I only owned it for 1 month out of the year because I purchased it 11 months into the year. So I'm going to adjust this just for 1 month out of 12 months in the year. That means that I have accumulated $6,667 worth of depreciation. And my book value now is going to use my regular book value formula, which would be cost minus accumulated depreciation. Now for year two, in year two, I owned this piece of equipment for the whole 12 months. So now we're going back to business as usual, right? So now I owned the equipment for the full 12 months. So it's going to be for the full 80,000 again. And this can be copied all the way down. Right. Now there is one issue that we're going to run into here. When we take a look at how much we've depreciated so far, you'll notice we still haven't hit our ending book value. And you'll kind of say, well, what happened? It's been 5 years, right? And the issue is, well, technically it's only been 4 years and 1 month. We actually are going to have to depreciate into the 6th year for the 11 months that are still missing, right? So for year 6, we're technically going to depreciate for those missing 11 months. So we're going to take that 80,000 and we're going to depreciate for 11 out of 12 months. There's the 11 months that we did not do back in year 1. And now you'll notice that our ending book value is equal to residual value, as it should be, that you should have seen back in our part 1 of this series where we were kind of talking about that full year depreciation. Now for double declining, it's actually very similar. And I'm going to actually pull us over to our full year so we can kind of get the big picture there. We do the same thing as we did before, where we take 40% of our book value and we get that 180, very similar to what we had done before. We did our full straight line formula. So 180, except just like before, we're going to adjust that for just 1 month out of the year, since we only owned it for the month of December in year 1. Okay. Now, when we get into year 2, we're just going to kind of pick up our formula same way as we did for full year depreciation. 40% of book value, but now we have a new book value. Let me drag this all the way down. And just like what we did with full year depreciation, we're going to have to kind of take into account that, hey, some of this information might be off simply because we had a little bit of a change going on there. Let me see what happened here. 0.4, that's looking good. Oh, let me change this real quick. Plus this. A little adjustment to my formulas. 1 second. Here. And then just like before, we have to start going into year 6 as well. We do a year 6, and you'll notice that we start eating into our residual value. Yeah. So here we dipped into our residual value. So just like before, when we were doing the full year depreciation, we're just going to have to adjust that final year to see how much we are allowed to depreciate based on what our residual value is. So we had a book value of $56,376. Our residual value is $50,000. So technically, we're only allowed to depreciate $6,376. Okay. And that works out. Beautiful. Now for the units of output method. The beautiful thing about this one is it's based on units of output, so they don't care that you purchased it in the last month of the year. The one thing that I will point out is, and I've had a lot of students point out, is it really realistic that they produced 200,000 units in the last month of the year? And I had some people say, well, they were just excited to get the new machinery and they produced a lot during the last month. Okay, I'm not an auditor, so we'll go ahead and we'll move on from there. But yeah, if they genuinely produced 200,000 units in the last month of the year, yeah, they did. If that's what happened, then they're able to go ahead and record the full 40,000 in depreciation for year 1. That does not change. It's not based on time. This is the method that is based on actual usage, so that would not get adjusted. And now D is the one that is probably the most complicated out of all of these when it comes to adjusting for partial periods, right? So keep in mind for some of the year's digits, we would basically take our some of the year's digits fraction and we would multiply it by our depreciable base, right? So we're going to do something very similar here. So we would have 5/15 times 400,000 times 1/12, right? So we basically just used up 1 month of this 5/15 fraction, which means that there's still 11 months to use up at 5/15, which means that 5/15, let me actually put this in parentheses just to keep our math neat. 5/15, the 11 months at 5/15 would have to flow into year 2, right? But now the issue is that we've only depreciated for 11 months in year 2. So where is the extra month going to come from? We are then going to have to get started on the next fraction down, 4/15 at 1 month. So just to kind of reiterate that, we only owned the machine in year 1 for 1 month. So we took 1 month at 5/15. The remaining 11 months at 5/15 were taken in year 2. Since only 11 months were taken at 5/15, the extra month for year 2 had to be taken at 4/15. Since only 1 month was taken at 4/15, then it's going to trickle down into year 3. And then it kind of just continues on. So now I have 11/12, 11 months at 4/15. So my last month, my last one singular month is going to come at 3/15. And then the missing 11 months that I still need for 3/15 will trickle into the next year. And then now I still need 1 month. So I'm going to grab that 1 month from the next fraction, 2/15. Oh, see, I made an error there. 2/15. at 1 month. So now I have a total of 11 twelfths and 1 12th. That makes 12 twelfths. I have my original fraction and then the start of my new fraction. 2 15ths. All right, so I have 11 months at 2 15ths and 1 month at 1 15th. And now I still need 11 months at 1 15th, so I'm going to do that in year 6. So 1 15th. All right, let's go ahead and grab some of my other formulas. Let's grab it from here. Ooh, beautiful. All right. So again, some of the year's digits, if you keep your thoughts organized, it's not too bad, but this is definitely the one that usually takes the most thought process. But as you can see, all of them react a little bit differently. All of them have to be handled differently. So it does take a little bit of practice to understand how each of them are going to be affected individually. But keep up the hard work. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and happy studying. Good work.